Hello everyone, welcome to HFY Beyond Terror. This channel is all about HFY and sci-fi stories, where humanity's underestimated and then proves...
The lecture chamber always smelled like overheated wiring and antiseptic air, filters that hadn't been changed since the last century. It was a small miracle the place still had power. Professor Corin insisted the environmental systems were functioning within acceptable parameters, which translated into, "Someone is going to suffocate in here eventually, but it won't be today." He clacked toward the podium on his jointed legs, robe swishing behind him like a ceremonial curtain. He wasn't tall for a Velkar, but what he lacked in height he made up for in intensity. His eyes never quite stopped moving, and when he got excited, he spoke faster than the translation algorithms could comfortably interpret. I sank into my grav seat and let it mold around me with a soft hum. Around the hall, dozens of bodies settled in their own ways. Some students floated a few centimeters off the floor. Some perched on folded limbs. One Quillen was hanging upside down from a ceiling brace. Quills flared wide like a chandelier. "Order," Corin declared, voice crackling through the hall's embedded translators. "Order. Today, we return to one of the most important limitations in xenobiology, gravitational tolerance." He paused, savoring the silence like it was a seasoning. "My dear scholars," he continued, "this is where biology becomes truly magnificent." A collective sigh ran through the room. I didn't roll my eyes, but I wanted to. According to Professor Corin, everything was magnificent. Last week it was atmospheric viscosity. The week before, the microscopic reproductive cycles of swamp organisms. He tapped the air. A hologram bloomed above the podium, numbers, charts, planetary models rotating slowly like suspended beads. In our known galaxy, he lectured, sentient species arose under wildly different gravitational conditions. The Quillen homeworld sits at 0.18 standard gravities. The Brent at 0.62. My own people evolved at 0.41. A Brent student in the back clicked their jaw in agreement. But here is the boundary that defined survival. Corin lifted a long, delicate appendage and pointed toward a glowing red line on the display. No naturally evolved sentient species, none, has been documented surviving prolonged exposure to 1 standard gravity or greater. The room was quiet, not because it was new information, because it was doctrine. High-gravity worlds were classified as death zones. Too heavy, too costly. Movement itself became a punishment. Bones thickened or shattered. Hearts failed. Muscles tore. The body became a machine operating under impossible resistance. 1 standard gravity, Corin repeated, is the universal ceiling. Cross it and biology collapses. A species might survive minutes, perhaps hours, but not days. Certainly not life. Beside me, Lena leaned in. She was Illith crystalline skin, light patterns running under her surface like living circuitry. Her luminescence flickered in amusement. "Is he going to bring up the Carvox disaster again?" she whispered. "Of course," I murmured. "He'd carve it into the station walls if he could." Right on schedule, Corin summoned another hologram. A grim photo of a collapsed research outpost and a list of names. "The Carvox expedition," he announced solemnly. "Cycle 2012. A crew attempted to establish a scientific base on a world with 1.12 standard gravities. They used enhanced exosuits, pharmaceutical boosters, advanced support systems." His eyes widened for emphasis. "They lasted 6 days. A cold chill crawled up my spine despite how familiar the story was. 3 died before rescue." Corin continued. "The survivors required months of physical recovery. One never returned to functional mobility. Let that be a lesson to you all." He leaned forward. 1 standard gravity is the line. Cross it and you gamble with death. His voice sharpened into finality. No species endures 1G none. That's when the doors groaned open. Not the smooth whisper of modern automation, but a harsh mechanical shriek like metal teeth grinding against each other. Everyone turned, and into the lecture chamber stepped something we had never seen. He was taller than any Velkar, though not quite Brent-sized. He walked on two legs. Carrying his weight like gravity was not a problem, but a suggestion. His skin was a warm brown shade, unlike any natural pigment I'd seen on a sentient. Strange patches of dark hair crowned his head. But the most unsettling thing was his face. His eyes pointed forward. Predator eyes. He took another step in, and his feet landed with heavy, solid thuds, like he wasn't trying to be quiet. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Not through the translator." His voice came out as raw sound, deep, resonant, old-fashioned. "Your campus navigation is not great." Professor Corrin stared at him. We all stared at him. The newcomer offered a helpless half-smile. "Should I, come back?" Corrin's translator stuttered in a burst of clicks. "No," he managed. "No. Please. You must be." "The exchange student." "Yep," the stranger said. Marcus Webb, Earth. Earth meant nothing to. M.E., a minor name. An overlooked world, apparently. Marcus moved to an empty grav seat near the front, examined it like it might bite him, then sat. The chair adjusted, then made a strained whine like it was holding up something it was never designed to carry. Corrin recovered just enough to continue his lecture. "As I was saying," he said carefully, "one standard gravity is—" Marcus raised his hand. Corrin blinked. "Yes?" Marcus tilted his head. "What's Earth's gravity?" The room went silent in a different way, confused, suspended. Corrin opened his datapad and began searching planetary registries. His limbs moved faster than his brain seemed to. Earth, Earth, Sol System, third planet. His eyes widened, then widened more. "This says," his voice shook, "Earth is one standard gravity." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, about that." Corrin stared. "That is impossible." Marcus shrugged. "I grew up there, so I'm pretty confident it exists." The translator emitted a burst of broken static as if it, too, was offended by the concept. Corrin tried again. "You are saying you evolved on a 1G world?" "Correct. And you can function normally there?" Marcus stood up casually. "Walk, run, jump, carry stuff. Normal human stuff. I played basketball in high school." He sat again. The chair gave up, pretending it was comfortable, and sank onto its solid base with a defeated clunk. Professor Corrin looked like his entire career was unraveling in real time. "But your skeleton," he murmured. "Your cardiovascular requirements. The energy cost." "We've got strong hearts," Marcus said. "We kind of have to. Gravity's always pulling." Lena leaned toward me again, her bioluminescent patterns flashing with panic. "Vec," she whispered. "Few humans live at 1G. What are they like here?" I watched Marcus stretch, cracking his neck with ease. "In 0.35? I whispered back. "Terrifying." Corrin's academic shock melted into pure curiosity. "Tell me everything," he demanded. "Atmospheric pressure? Radiation exposure? Oxygen composition?" Marcus answered like he was describing a grocery list. 1 atmosphere. Oxygen around 21%. Ozone layer does most of the radiation blocking. Nothing fancy. Corrin looked ready to faint. "This changes everything." Marcus leaned back. "Seems like you just need to update your textbooks." A student in the back raised a tentacle. "Humans evolved at 1G. What does that mean for their physical capability compared to ours?" Corrin hesitated, then spoke slowly like he was trying not to frighten the room. It means humans would be stronger, denser bones, more developed musculature, more efficient circulation. They would have to be. Marcus waved a hand dismissively. I'm average. The silence that followed was thick. If this was average, what did exceptional look like? Then another student asked about pain tolerance. Another asked about survival traits. And Marcus, with maddening calm, explained the simplest truth. Humans didn't have venom. They didn't have claws. They weren't armored. They had endurance. They had stubbornness. And they had a strange cultural habit of doing things that sounded like madness. Some people climb mountains for fun, Marcus said. You climb mountains, someone repeated. Sure. Lena's patterns flashed with disbelief. And you do this under one standard gravity? Yep. And you call this entertainment? Marcus shrugged. It's a nice view. Then he mentioned jumping from aircraft. Then jumping off bridges with cords tied to ankles. Then diving into underwater caves. The room made a dozen different sounds of horror. Professor Corin, instead of being terrified, looked thrilled. We will need tests, he announced, practically trembling. Strength trials. Endurance. Evaluation. Bone density scans. Marcus sighed. Yeah, okay. I guess. The testing session by afternoon, the station's gymnasium was packed. Students, staff, security officers pretending they weren't curious, even a few professors. Marcus arrived wearing simple fabric clothing he called workout gear and looked around at the crowd like he'd accidentally wandered into a public performance. I feel like I'm in a zoo, he said. You kind of are, I admitted. He laughed. Fair. Corin began with measurements. On the station scale, Marcus registered at 79 kilograms. In 0.35 gravity, that meant his effective weight was less than 30. I feel like a balloon, Marcus said. I could probably jump over a building. Please do not, Corin said quickly. Not until we reinforce the ceiling. The grip test came first. Marcus squeezed. The number climbed. And climbed. And climbed. Corin stared at the result in silence, then quietly said, The average Velcar grip force is 80 newtons. Marcus had registered over 400. Corin's limbs shook with excitement. You could crush most of us by accident, he whispered. Marcus blinked. That's not great. Then came lifting. Marcus picked up weights that normally required machinery. 300 kilograms in low gravity, like he was hoisting an overstuffed bag. Then endurance testing. 30 minutes on the treadmill. 40 an hour. His breathing barely changed. His heart rate stayed controlled. Corin looked as if he discovered a new law of the universe. This, he whispered, is not a species. It's a biological anomaly. Marcus hopped off the treadmill. How'd I do? Corin stared at him. I do not have adequate words. The hull BRE 3 weeks later. The station alarm screamed, not evacuation. Not fire, hull breach. The lights turned crimson. The intercom crackled with sharp command tones. Structural failure detected. Sector 7, Level 3, Maintenance Bay 12. Everyone froze. We all knew what a hull breach meant. Pressure loss, air loss. People dying fast. Student near the back raised a trembling appendage. My lab partner went to Bay 12. They sighed. 10 minutes ago. Lena's glow drained. Jex, she whispered. Before anyone could speak, Marcus stood. Professor Hawk, our diplomacy instructor, snapped at him. Sit down. Rescue teams will handle it. Marcus didn't move. 15 minutes, he said. That's the estimated response time. Marcus shook his head slowly. She doesn't have 15 minutes. You are not trained. Marcus turned toward the door. I can move fast. I can force doors if I have to. And I can hold my breath longer than most species here. His voice was calm, but his eyes were locked onto something only he could see, the shape of a choice. I have to try. And then he ran, not sprinted, ran. Like a force of nature, his footsteps shook the floor. I looked at Lena, she looked at me. We can't let him go alone, I said. That makes no logical sense, she whispered. I know. And we chased after him anyway. Marcus reached the security checkpoint and went through 2 guards like they weren't there, not with violence, but with speed and terrifying control. Sir, one guard barked, you cannot enter. Marcus took the restraint tool from his hand so gently it felt like an insult, placed it aside, and kept moving. We reached the checkpoint just in time to see the sealed doors cycle shut behind him. We waited. Alarms. Howled. Minutes dragged. Then the comms crackled. This is Marcus Webb. His voice came through, strained and breathless. I'm in Bay 12. I found Jex. She's alive, unconscious. The guard swore. Tell him to leave her, the guard snapped into his communicator. Save himself. He won't, I said quietly, more static. I've got her, Marcus said. Bulkhead override is sealed. Trying manual. His breathing sounded wrong. Thin. Painful. Then another transmission. Found it. Opening. Bringing her through. Need medical at checkpoint Alpha. The rescue teams arrived just as the portable airlock sealed into place. And then the inner door opened. Marcus stumbled out carrying Jex like she was, weightless. His skin had gone pale blue from oxygen deprivation. His lips were dark, his eyes unfocused. He placed her into the hands of medics, voice barely audible. She needs help. And then he collapsed like a puppet with the strings cut. After nuts hours later, a doctor emerged. Jex will recover, they announced. She was in vacuum approximately 4 minutes. Another minute, and we would have lost her. And Marcus? I asked. The doctor hesitated. The human is stable. Severe oxygen loss, mild hypothermia, tissue trauma from decompression. But he looked baffled. His body is astonishingly resilient. When we finally saw Marcus in recovery, he had an oxygen mask and a dozen monitors. But he was awake. Lena stepped forward, hands on her hips. You are an idiot. Marcus gave a weak thumbs up. Double quotes. Yeah, you almost died. But I didn't. You ran into a decompression zone with no suit. I had a plan. Get her and get out is not a plan. Marcus shifted carefully, then pulled the mask aside. Is she okay? She's fine, I said. Because of you. Marcus nodded, relief washing over him. Good. Professor Corrin entered like a storm. Marcus Webb, he announced. You violated orders, bypassed security, entered a restricted zone, and risked your life for a fellow student. Marcus blinked. Am I in trouble? Corrin's eyes rotated and what we'd learned was amusement. Yes. Marcus's shoulders sank. Double quotes and Corrin continued. You are also being awarded the station Civilian Valor Commendation. Marcus stared. That seems contradictory. Corrin leaned closer. No, Marcus. It is humanity. The truth about HUMANs that night. We gathered in the common area students from species who had evolved under soft gravity, fragile bodies, careful instincts. Marcus sat with us. Still looking like he'd been dragged through a storm? Quinn asked. The question that lingered in every mind. Why did you do it? Marcus looked around at us, genuinely confused. Because someone needed help. But you risked your life, Barl said. Marcus shrugged. So? Lena stared at him. Humans are ridiculous. Marcus smiled tiredly. Yeah, but we're ridiculous together. And that was when I finally understood. Humans weren't brave. Because they weren't afraid. Humans were brave because they acted anyway. They had evolved under crushing weight and constant danger. Yes, but their real strength wasn't bone density. It wasn't muscle. It was the refusal to abandon. Someone when the universe demanded they do exactly that. Ian Dion Geel later. I stood at the station viewport, staring into the starfield. Earth was out. There somewhere. A planet with oceans, storms, mountains, predators, earthquakes, and one standard gravity pressing down on everything living. 8 billion humans lived there. 8 billion. Average Marcus Webbs. And the galaxy had just learned an uncomfortable truth. 1G wasn't the line that couldn't be crossed. It was the line humanity had been fighting against their whole existence. And now they were stepping beyond it. Not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as stubborn, fearless, impossible beings who looked at the most hostile conditions imaginable and sighed, "We'll make it work."